G'day, everyone. So we're back at the start of the year with another round with Trader Ferg. How you going, Ferg?
Good to be back, Jordan. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, mate. How was your holiday period? What'd you get up to in Bali?
Not a lot this year. It's been we usually escape, and this year we stayed because couldn't really. We were supposed to go to a resort in Vietnam for like 2 weeks, but Mia couldn't face being on a plane, so we cancelled it all and just had sort of a low key holiday here. And it's been really heavy rainy season, so we toured around Bali, been to a few hotels and stuff, but overall pretty quiet. So
How's
the only big what I was just telling you, the only big celebration we've got planned is for Hugo. He's turning 2, so throwing the largest party I have in years. He's got 20 friends coming. We've got bouncy castles, face painting.
Dude, that's a bit different from the last time we used to party, mate. Just one back the clock a few years, and now you're going to have like 20 toddlers running around in chaos.
Exactly. Yeah. No, there's nothing more chaotic than it's like worse than trying to herd cats. Like trying to herd cats on speed. Everyone's like throwing tantrums, running off, going different places, eating the paint.
Still doing BJJ? Lots of BJJ, or
Yeah. I've just come straight from there now. I just entered another competition.
What belt are you up to now?
Purple belt, 4 stripes. I should be getting my brown.
Holy shit! Seriously?
Now. Yeah. So
Jesus, man.
On the final countdown to black for another 3 years. Yeah.
God damn! What have you been doing that now? It would be 4 or 5 years or something, hey, or longer.
Yeah, about that. About 5. 5 years.
Jesus, brown belt soon. Jeez, oof.
Yeah,
pushing up there.
But yeah, every day. My wife says it's an addiction.
Are you doing it every day?
Yeah, more or less. Yeah, I love it.
Are you throwing in
my mind off,
and then throwing in a few weight sessions and other fitness stuff, or just purely BJJ?
Well, I'll show you. So I've got here. So I've got I've got an assault bike, which I call the devil's bike, which is an absolute beast of a thing. I've got 2 24 kg kettlebells, pull-ups, and a big 36 kg kettlebell. And whenever Hugo wakes up at 6 a.m., he comes up here and he's either on the shoulder when I'm doing squats and lunges, or hanging off my feet when I'm doing pull-ups, or he does a few bub hangs. He's not quite up to a pull-up yet, or he does squats with me. So
he loves it.
Or he just cheers me on when I'm on the assault bike. Yeah.
So, mate,
that's
cool. What a setup.
He's not in the mood, so he just watches cartoons. Yeah.
Fair enough. All right, let's get into some market talk. What are you seeing, mate? I saw your article come out this morning on oil, and that was an absolute beauty. I just love reading through that this morning. Do you want to start with that? What are you seeing in kind of a rundown with oil?
Yeah, well, I wanted to do that one justice because that's taken me a while to kind of put together, because I was just looking through like all the questions, all the negative arguments, and I just wanted to put it all together in one piece, like work through how it looks moving forward, and like put the major kind of bear arguments together. Like you can just argue cyclicality, which is what I started with. Like it's just a bit silly that it's like 3.3% of the S&P, and historically
crazy number,
27%. Yeah, like I saw there's a guy on Substack, he just posted the history of Chevron, and it's historically been up to I think it's been up to like 5-6% of the S&P as a position in the past a few times, and even higher, I think, if you take it right back. And so similar to like Apple and Nvidia getting up to whatever they are, 6 or 7 now.
Yeah,
it's just on pure cyclical like history. You can tell that this is an opportunity, but then obviously got to explain it in more depth. And so that was when I wanted to go through pretty much the main 2 bear cases, which are what you see a lot of headlines like the IEA saying we've got an oil glut coming, and everyone just generally being bearish. And so I just wanted to work through a lot of those arguments, and the first being sort of like weak demand.
Yeah.
And the main point I wanted to make in that whole essay at the start on that is the fact that the IA's kind of got its whole ideology around sort of green taking over, like the green net zero. And when you go through the actual numbers, the impact of the green sort of ramp, whether it's EVs or wind turbines or solar, mainly EVs and LNG in China, it's impacted less than a quarter of oil demand.
Yeah.
So three quarters is just down to slow economic growth, and that can turn on a dime, especially if the Chinese get serious about stimulus.
So all that green victory lap is just is basically just economic slowdown. Is that's how I interpret it? Yeah. The green victory laps you see in the media is really just slowdown of the economy. Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah. So the main takeaway from that is they're saying it's a permanent situation, whereas history would show whenever oil gets really cheap and you do get a bit of an economic slowdown, cheap oil incentivizes economic growth and it actually bounces back. So you can look at this throughout history. And I had a few examples there where in COVID, when got sort of saw 8.5% drawdown during 2020 year on year, and everyone was sort of peak bearishness, saying oil's peak. 2019 was the absolute peak in oil consumption, and the next year put in 6.5% growth year over year, and by the start of 2023 we were back in an all-time high. And you can do the same with the GFC, which was about 2.5% drawdown sort of year over year, and the next year was I think it was 3.5% growth. So yeah, it's just
super robust trend.
Careful, be very careful betting against oil growth. And then I go into the reasons for that is there's nearly 7 billion people that just want to increase their standard of living, and they want to get there. A Nigerian wants to get his half a barrel a year up to 1 barrel. A Indian wants to get his just over 1 barrel up to Chinese level of 3 barrels. And a Chinese person wants to get their consumption up to Thailand of 6 barrels. And it's just that all adds up. And IEA always misses this. So anyone that ever looks at IEA's data, they just put it down to missing barrels, and then they reconcile it a year or two or even 15 years later. They just reconcile and add in all the developing market growth that they've missed. So on the demand side, that was what the picture I'm painting is. Yeah, we could have more economic weakness, and trying to guess what China can actually grow at is above my pay grade. But just saying that the numbers could easily surprise to the upside is not the permanent demand reduction that some of the sort of the Bloomberg Green articles are sort of saying oil demand's about to fall off a cliff because of EV penetration, which isn't true.
It just isn't true. What about India? Like, if you're not so sure on what could happen with China and oil demand, how's the Indian trend? Because they obviously are the most populous country in the world, and they just seem to be consuming a ton of oil. But if you look at the data on purchased vehicles, so I think you put a good chart in your article today, which is interesting. You see a super robust trend of just increased consumption. Do you see just them just consuming a ton of oil and driving demand primarily out there? Or
so India's been a bit of a disappointment when you look at their growth rate of oil consumption. But I was trying to look for what kind of reasons why it isn't growing stronger, because everything that you look at would suggest it should be cranking. And the one that it's still like, it's obviously speculation, there's nothing really to back it up, but the one that makes the most sense to me is there's a certain amount of that oil that's not been reported because they're importing a ton from Russia, and it makes it makes sense that a lot would be coming in and probably on the shadow or the dark fleet. So it just might not be showing up in the official data, because you can see their imports from Russia are, I think, as of 2024, they're up to like 40%. So they're really taking advantage of that. And We do know there's a pretty substantial shadow fleet making its way around, so it makes sense that India would look the other way to keep fueling its economy with cheap oil. But as I say, that won't really wash out until maybe the Russia conflict comes to an end, and those barrels become more sort of observable, I guess, like the shadow fleet gets disbanded if the sanctions get lifted, which is a lot of ifs. But that's one theory. But yeah, I put that chart book in for India because it's just everything. You can see the trajectory. Just everything is just bottom left to top right. Vehicles, growth, economy, consumption, their own oil production's absolutely rolling over.
Yeah.
So, and then the supply sides. Yeah.
I was going to say, could you see like a similar type of resource boom happening out of India? I mean, I don't know too much about it, but I'm just thinking like obviously it's proximity to Australia as well, and just like this huge amount of people moving through the S-curve of development. Could you see it reflected in other commodities, maybe demand out of there? Or
I don't think the parallel of like expecting India to do a China kind of holds up, but I expect them to grow strongly along with the rest of the developing world. And this is kind of on the back of China now. Like now that it's largely kind of been starting to sort of have this trade war with the US, it's got all these it's trying to move up the value chain, and it needs to trade with a lot of people. And so it's why it's so important that we're seeing China kind of do deals with a lot of developing countries in their own currencies or its currency, net settled in gold, and that takes the US dollar out as the kind of the bottleneck. And so you can see trade really ramp up, and that would be India would be a massive beneficiary of that. And I just expect strong growth out of the developing world is kind of my base case. And
that includes obviously Africa and wide variety of different. I
think China's just going to keep stepping in with like they know. I'm trying to figure an example. They know if they can lift an economy, they can increase economic activity. Like say a simple example would be like if they agree to finance on great terms, like an African country to have a nuclear reactor, and they can lift them all out of poverty to an extent, they're going to demand more like hybrids. They're going to start consuming more Chinese electronics. It'll just be like a virtuous cycle, and especially if the country's also got a certain amount of like resources that China can sort of control via debt. You can bring up some great charts on how they've done this throughout Africa already. They've lent them a lot, and I've got their hooks in there already.
Yeah, interesting. Oh, mate, I want to move over to a taboo subject, but what am I missing with Paladin and Boss shorts? So onto Uranium, and now I've got Paladin shares listed on the TSX. It's a done deal in Canada with Fission. What's your take on it all?
So I'm as perplexed as you, honestly, at this point. So I'm comfortable owning it here. Granted, I sold like my large Paladin position and then resized it to kind of 5% in Fission, which is now merged with Paladin. And when I look at it, like I was far more uncomfortable with Boss because I don't know what any of their numbers are going to look like. But when they actually announced, essentially they all sold on the first barrel, which didn't really tell us much. So I can kind of see the angle there that there could be a big disappointment. With Paladin, it's I'm surprised. I see they have started, the shorts have started covering.
I saw that too. Towards the end of the year, it wasn't updated, but
they've started covering. But with Paladin, if you work through what they're trying to actually bet on, because so the big disappointment was they're working through stockpiles, and the stockpiles weren't weren't categorized, or whatever you want to call it, properly, and so they don't know the quality of each of the stockpiles, so they're disappointed as they're working through them. That's all done by June of this year, in which they move back to mining
like new material
to the actual mine, and they're expecting good grades there.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and so the actual disappointment there is, I'd like to say they're on top of that. Are they betting on more droughts? Seems unlikely. Their market's kind of aware of that. Now that the fission deal's gone through, doesn't seems like there's a lot more liquidity, a lot more people can buy it. They're also betting against, like, essentially spot running. Like this whole sector will start to move. They've also got, as Rick Rule pointed out, kind of a consolidator. Now they've got the experience of they've got the contract book of Paladin to help finance stuff, and they've now got a decent resource, which has got a sort of a big gap opening up between where next gen has been valued and where fission's been valued.
Yeah,
which I think those two develop together. So when it's also not as if Paladin has just been shorted on its own. Like I'd be really second guessing it if this was they were pushing this short and they'd left everything else alone. But you see, they're going after
Boss,
pretty much all the
DBLO, all the ASX,
even Bannerman.
Are they on Bannerman now? Okay,
they're going after Bannerman as well now. So
that was getting left alone. So that was getting left alone. So you kind of thought it was kind of just subjected to the producers like Paladin and Boss. But if the fact that they're going after Bannerman, DBLO, a whole basket now means it's kind of just a whole sector short, really, on the spot price almost.
Yeah, well, I just wonder if it might just be a long short play, which is, it was smart if they put it on, because if they said Trump will be good for like US uranium and they went long US producers and short sort of ASX African, because that's the other thing to remember is everyone probably pretty angry with the performance of a lot of the ASX names, but they're also like the risk on uranium names.
Yeah, they're all in Africa.
They're all in Africa. They're generally higher cost, like the likes of a Bannerman's just a sort of a massive call option, because you've got like a Tango 8, and then once that kind of gets green lit, then you've got the bigger a Tango as well onto it. So it's a real like call option on top of a call option. Whereas a lot of the US stuff, like the ISR stuff's a lot more lower cost and manageable. So I think I'm like fine with all that stuff. I know it's going to be volatile, but I'm just perplexed. Uranium spot price got down to 70. I didn't see that coming.
Yeah. That's probably the cause of a lot of this pain, though, right? Like ultimately, it's probably just linked to that, as far as like without me diving into it like yourself or a Justin Hune. I'm seeing like spot prices down. It was $110 almost this time last year. Now it's down to 70, and it's pretty much reflected in my portfolio what's happened there.
Well, it's interesting as well, because like if you go over what got wrong, that I've like read quite a few of my old pieces, and the brutal truth is to it when went into the whole uranium trade, it was going to be driven by term contracting. And last year there was only just over 100 million pounds contracted when replacement rate's 180. So it was
for way
just
short.
over like half. So way short. And the year before that was like 150, 160. So it still wasn't even replacement rate. And
so it just can't be sustainable, right? Yeah, they just have to come in a big way, and it sends the market into the moon. Yeah, well,
it is literally that simple, because you can like bash sort of uranium pundits all you like, but there is one thing that is like
there's a massive deficit.
Cap with it is there is a big deficit, and there is a whole lot of reactors that can't substitute it, and I think a lot of people get mixed up with sort of thinking that a lot of this is reliant, like the thesis was never reliant on the growth we're seeing. The thesis was revolved around operational reactors and what they needed moving forward. Like everything else is just gravy. And so at the moment, there is just a massive amount that needs to be. It is. I always use the analogy. It's like musical chairs, and like when we went back a year and we had the Kazatomprom.
That was this time last year.
I thought that was the equivalent of like I don't know, call it like 10 utilities dancing around like 7 chairs, and they'd all be looking at someone, and then Kazatomprom walked in and took one more chair away. So there's now only 6 chairs, and they're like, fuck, we should probably panic and try and sit down. And here we are,
didn't happen.
Another year later, and there's fucking there's down to 4 chairs, and everyone's still dancing around the room like there's no problem. I think it
does it just drag out like another few years, or is it kind of like something like I don't want to get you to put a prediction on it, but I just like, I mean, like I think I bought my first stock 7-8 years ago. 2016, and it's just been a lot more uranium hanging around than people thought initially, I think. So, how do you give it a sort of outlook from here?
It's definitely been a learning curve, and something I've learned when I look at something like PGMs is like, don't ever be too smart thinking you've got any idea what sort of inventory is in the world and what can sort of pop up out of places. Like with uranium, even people that did the most work were sort of
caught out
tighter than it was. And here we are, 2025, and as I said, 2024 utilities contracted at half the rate they should have. Like I bet you there wasn't a single person that picked that back in 21 looking at this thesis that they still wouldn't have come to the table.
It's just so funny. I see some I see some very smart.
You just have to be humble.
I do see some really smart dudes on Twitter, especially, just say the thesis isn't robust at all. Especially Koala. I saw him. He always loves having to go at the uranium crowd. He just doesn't believe in the thesis. But it's strange. Like, you think someone that clever, would sort of think the way kind of we're thinking about it in simple terms, but doesn't seem to be the case.
It's fair. Everyone's got their opinion. I haven't read his opinion deeply on uranium to comment, but I do deeply disagree with some of his takes as well. Like, he's got the whole lithium's the next iron ore, and I reckon that's 100% wrong, because he's super smart when he comes down to like analyzing the geology and what money it will make, but I reckon he's 100% wrong on the demand output. Just on the sheer fact that he's assuming lithium is an ultimate winner, when I think that's a stretch. You've only got to look at the trouble the Western EV manufacturers are in, and how the Chinese, which are dominating, they've turned to LFP and are building sodium ion, and all this projected demand for EVs and storage. I don't even know if it occurs. And once you go from sort of an EV to a hybrid, you're like, they're consuming like 2/3 less of a battery, and they're not lithium-based batteries. So I don't want to touch that thesis. Whereas uranium, the numbers might not be as good, but I think because that's honestly the prick with the uranium whole thesis.
Let's look at the valuations.
You've got an airtight macro thesis, and you've got some pretty shitty companies to play it with, which is what makes it a lot more difficult. And that's why I've been kind of, a lot of the money I took out from Paladin and Boss has ended up now going more towards like what I just wrote up: Tidewater, Seadrill, Valaris, sizing them up a bit. And if I was going to keep money in, the money I have kept in went to more like kind of Bannerman, like almost more call options to give me a bit more torque.
Yeah, I was going to ask, is that something I should do? Like, I'm still pretty Paladin Boss heavy in my portfolio, especially now it's converted to TSX shares, and now I've got a share of Paladin over there. I'm just thinking, should I maybe allocate some to more of a call option uranium plays like your Alligator, your Bannermans? Yeah,
I'd say go off. Like, I'd split it a bit more. I know you don't own much sort of offshore and stuff. I'd consider some
yeah, okay,
something out there. I wouldn't be too heavy Boss. I still think Boss.
It's so hard to sell that. I really can't sell that. It's just down to the level it is. Like, it makes me sick. Like, seeing that at $6 in May, and then I'm back down here at $2.40 or something. I'm just like, oh, can I do it? But yeah, I should, especially now because I'm actually moving all my shares out of the Australian system. I finally got that going. It's taken all this time. So I've got them out of like Westpac, which was my primary account, and I've moved them all into Interactive. And now I can say to the ATO that I've initiated the Paraguayan residency, and I've almost like at the point of deemed disposal. So it's probably better I do it all now, get the date locked in to realizing all them, and then for my tax reasons, then I can finish this year cleanly and move over to Paraguay. That's the plan.
Yeah, well, there's a lot to touch on there, which is kind of important. The one is, as you say, you'll realize a whole lot less tax. Two is the fact, don't always be too focused on making your money back the way you lost it. Like, it's always just a risk reward moving forward. What's happened. And if I look at a Tidewater, I think it's a far easier double here than a Boss, and both get you back to where that original amount of money was. And so, don't ever view a position as
that's a good point. That's a very good point. Yeah, I think I'm just too married to these stocks, which is what I thought might happen, just because it's kind of like you see the great gains. It was kind of like my big first share market wins was when they initially re-rated. I need to really seriously think about this for sure. Yeah,
and it's not to think what's going to be the ultimate winner as well. Like, I've shown that again and again what I think is the best setup often is, and what plays out. And if anything, you're seeing like some of these names can just re-rate so quickly. Like one that it literally scares me is every time I look at like Rhodium, and I'm trying to get more and more money into physical Rhodium, and I'm just worried. Yeah, I'm just worried that I'm going to look at that thing one day and it's going to jump like 50%, and I know that I can't get back to that. Like, you see, it was like Seatrim. Seatrim doesn't give a fuck what the broad.
That's gone nuts now. It's at nearly $2.20 or something. That's nearly
Yeah, it's just some days I was like opening because I have it next to Valaris and Tidewater, and it was fascinating. Some days we'd put in like a 2% day, and Valaris would be down like 5%. So it's there's a reason why some position sizing and diversification works, and I've been certainly guilty of being too bulled up on uranium and really thinking that there was going to be kind of a linear move up to when I would start trimming, and I've been pretty badly punished for thinking that everyone would realize once, because Adaprom missed, that was going to be important, and that there would be limited downside and decent upside, and that obviously hasn't played out. And that was my big mistake, was not just saying like, this is like some great outperformance and I should really trim this heavily. Granted, I'm not too hard on myself either, because I know what I would have done. I can see my thinking at the time,
and it probably wouldn't have paid off.
Stuff. I would have put it into stuff that would have got cut in half anyway.
Yeah. That's what I was about. That's what I meant. The same situation. You think you're being clever, and then you learn your lesson, but no.
If I'd completely taken Paladin off at the top, I would have plowed it all into probably offshore drillers, and I would have got cut in half there. So it's or I would have put it in some PGMs like Sibanye. Obviously, I thought that was bottom crawling, and it's
come back down.
A new basement to crawl in, which is frustrating, but it's none of it changes the outlook.
So the takeaway from your article was basically the best way to play this oil demand going forward is probably through the offshore drillers, just through the ones you listed.
Yeah, well, for me, like I know there'll be some people that will absolutely run rings around me with some Canadian junior
Yeah.
producers,
Yeah.
but I'm not smart enough to play that game. Like I've got a super smart friend who talk with occasionally, and he goes by Contrarian like 888
Yeah. I'm
8
familiar with
on
him.
Twitter.
Yeah. Is he
And
still
yeah,
back on
when
Twitter?
he,
Or?
I think so. Yeah, I think he's still on Twitter. And
Okay.
when he had like I think it's Panafin resources, and when got run through the thesis originally, I couldn't tell if it was a good setup or a bad setup, and then getting run through the thesis again now, and I can't like it's just beyond the scope of what I understand. Like these,
He's been harping on about that
these,
stock for years, for like literally, I reckon, 3 years. I first heard him talk about Pantheon.
yeah, Avalon, yeah, and then it's the same with like I follow HFI research, and he's got had like Gear Energy, and Josh Young's got like Joy, and when I go
Yeah,
through
Cuppy as well.
when I yeah, when I go through the stuff, like I just don't understand it. Like I think a lot of it, you just got to say like, if I can't really understand what I'm reading um, until if there's a bull case or if it's makes no sense, then why am I putting money there? And that's where I think I've got a reasonably good grasp on the whole offshore space. I'm also, even if I don't have a great grasp, it's been through a bankruptcy cycle. You've got you've removed the debt. I'm not taking that's also why I've removed a few of the more sort of debt heavy.
I was going to say what
Secor,
and Transocean,
and Transocean, like I'm not by any means a bear on either of them, but it's just with Transocean, if they do, which they kind of need to, they need to make themselves sort of as attractive as some of these restructured plays. They probably need to pick up Seadrill. They're going to have to spray around some pretty excessive share issuance, and they've still got to reactivate a whole lot of drill rigs, or you're going to learn that they aren't viable to reactivate, which are all kind of downsides. And meanwhile, you could sit in Seadrill and they're buying back as much stock as they can. It just seems like a better place to sit. And even if there's a surprise and Noble or Valaris step up, like I'll be all over owning whatever company acquires Seadrill. That'll just be. I kind of tried to show like a consolidation chart and just show just how many write-offs there's been. It will be, if I was like kind of joking, it'll be like V-Drill or Knob Drill if one of those two pick it up and that have
Knob Drill.
Yeah, essentially 14 billion of rigs that are just held on the balance sheet for zero. So like,
jeez, that's just insane.
Anyone that's going to compete with that, like they have to put now. So the financing isn't there for offshore rigs because they burned everyone in the last cycle. So it used to be like 10% down. Now they're going to have to put 40% down.
Yeah, and
then once they pay that 40%, they've then got to wait 5 years for that rig to be put on the water.
Yeah.
This will probably be in a time when inflation's running up in the high single, if not low teens. So that's going to have quite a sort of a carrying cost in itself. And you're going to have these rig operators that even if they pay up for a new fleet, they're going to have to compete with these guys that are carrying all these rigs with no debt service.
No debt on the sheet.
Yeah.
So it's the best way.
That's why I love it.
Yeah. So the best way to play that for now would probably be through Seadrill. I think I need to after reading your article today and talking to you now, I really need to get a position in that. Especially with these just my position in Paladin and Boss, I need to start getting out of there.
You'll just have, because the thing is you've probably got too much it's too concentrated. What
that's right. Well, the only other offshore I have offshore play is Namchong, and that's just that's done great, but it's kind of hovered around the relisting price for a while now. Yeah, what are your thoughts on the Singapore offshore plays these days, Ferg?
So I'm going to be going through them in my next piece.
Okay. Yeah.
Talking of Nan Chong in particular, they're a beast behind the scenes. So so this is from talking to John. He's just awesome in himself. Like that guy's so smart.
Yeah.
He was just running me through like so nothing's really showing up in their shipbuilding division, but what they're doing is so they earn like a 5% margin if they build OSVs for other people. But they've decided with free cash flow, they'll just build their own, and they're getting like a 20% return on them. And I think they build the process of building 2. So they're just gonna, and I'm talking about building like 4 more. So they're just gonna.
So they're building their own. They're building their own fleet out of their shipyard.
Yep,
it's epic.
And
holy shit!
And no one's really talking about it. And,
Jesus.
Into really high rates, and it's its own unique little market that they're servicing as well, because they it's mainly Petronas, the national there, and there's laws that they have to use local vessels.
Yeah,
and it's 2/3 LNG and only 1/3 oil, so it's actually quite removed from all the drama going on in the oil space.
Needless
to say, I love that position. Got a really heavy position in it for something so small, but I see just trying to forget I own the thing for another 5 years.
Yeah, cool. Okay, that's good. With the Singapore offshore plays, are they really seasonal? Just with their utilization, because of like the monsoon season, and does that really affect their numbers in the quarterlies, or that's just all factored in and it's all accounted for, I guess.
I haven't actually looked at how seasonal they are.
I was just wondering, because I imagine so.
Yeah.
But no, don't know enough about it. Yeah.
No, I don't know enough about that to comment either. But
I was just looking at. I think
they're so cheap. It honestly,
it does.
Probably doesn't pay to overthink it. In that, the one that does is like what I've been doing is like, do you like? I think the perfect example was Tidewater versus Sequel. Like, don't be too smart if some quality has been really hammered. Probably lean into the quality more, which was why like I went through the Sequel, and I think it does well from here. But when Tidewater's also been cut in half, like why try to be too smart? Especially when Tidewater's got cheaper finance. So like Sequel's, I think it's costed debt. And it's got a decent amount of debt still. It's like 10.5, and Tidewater can issue debt at like 8, so it's going to eat it every day of the week, and it'll probably end up even acquiring it probably on a long enough time frame. Probably be second line behind Hornbeck. So I'm trying to do more of that in the portfolio. Like what can I own that I'll be happily still owning? It's just like consolidated idea. Like I love putting those charts in where you see an industry that started off as like 20 players ends up as like 3 players. And if you can like try and pick a player that's going to end up gobbling everyone, and you can just sit back and have capital gains, and they've shown a willingness to buy back stock, like Tidewater has, Polaris has, Seadrill has. Maybe Paladin ends up as a bit of a consolidator because there's not going to be that much experience in the whole uranium to bring mines on and to have an actual contract book. There's not that many players. I feel like just really, but that takes looking out quite a long. You're then talking sort of a far longer time frame.
Yeah. So 2025, you're thinking basically just a little summary, probably offshore drillers and services, uranium and rhodium are probably your highest conviction plays. Just as a general sort of.
Yeah, well, I think definitely offshore. Because the thing as well, like I put some charts in where with offshore, you've actually got the order books, so you can there's a level at which they're just stupidly cheap because you know how much they'll roughly earn with their order book. And that's why I brought up those charts where you can see what the analysts, where they landed.
Yeah.
And they pretty much got down to like coal valuations, like sort of 3 times EV to EBITDA.
Yeah, I saw those charts.
That's cheaper than most coal plays, which is like, you can't get too much cheaper than them. May never say
that was out 2 or 3 years in the future, hey? Like they were trading at like 3 or 4 times EV, EBITDA. Yeah. I've never seen that.
Yeah.
So super cheap on that time frame.
So not to say they bounced back immediately. Like I still think, as I kind of laid out in my oil piece, you've still got to have everyone realize that shale's topped out. You've got to have the OPEC cuts worked through and demand at least keep grinding away, not really tank. Like it's and with
robust trend.
I think we're going to be a pretty tight oil market by the end of this year. So I think offshore's super attractive. Still want to keep exposure to uranium because I think that's a ticking time bomb. When I like Paulo Macro's point as well that with the Russian ban, the US utilities just have to wait for additional conversion before they can start contracting the size. So he's saying what'll kick off the big upleg in uranium is when they announce big capacity additions and conversion, and he thought that'd be coming within a quarter or two. So it'll be interesting if that's right. I've long since given up my crystal ball of thinking what'll be what'll be the thing that'll kick it off. I just know they have to come at some point, and it's been a painful wait. And the other one that I'm keeping a close eye on as well is by second quarter this year, Anglo American has got rid of their 67% in Amplats, and Anglo American Platinum. And that's already like kind of creeping along an all-time low, not all-time low, but low for the last 5 years, and that's pretty crazy cheap. So that's interesting as well, and especially if you own physical rhodium, because then you're kind of hedged. If you own Sibanye, you've got 25% of global rhodium production. If you own Amplats, you've got another 25%. And so if anything happened to those two, you can bet that rhodium prices would be somewhere ridiculous. So it's kind of an interesting hedge in itself to own all of that as a basket.
Yeah, well, Sibanye's come back down to I think $3.50 a share or something at the moment, so might be worth a little entry point. I've got a bit of a different subject, but I'm writing an article now, so it's fresh in my mind. Just like, obviously, you're about 7 to 8 years into the whole leaving the rat race. What advice would you have for people who want to start out and make it sustainable? So make it a sustainable decision, because too often you get people, they try it out 3 or 4 months and basically can't hack it, or they go back to a safety net. I've noticed it, especially over here, just with a lot of the Americans that come in and out of Buenos Aires and return back to America. But just for yourself, mate, you're quite established in the space if you want to dig into it. But you've set it up quite well for yourself. What are some tips or some advice?
One would be you've got to really enjoy it, because if you just like I've just loved the markets, and I've been doing this even if there was
that's a good point with you. You love the market, so you found what you wanted to be doing.
If I'd been doing this just purely for money, well, I guess it is a money game, so that's a silly statement to even say because it's how you keep track. But if this was something else that wasn't involved with money, I'd be loving it anyway. I just love the whole game of it. And so anyone that knows me, my wife's watching Netflix and I'm like reading some presentation, or I'm watching some YouTube on ESGen or something. That's just me. I enjoy it. She always gets angry that I won't commit to watching the shows. Did watch The Jackal though the other night. That's really good.
What are you watching?
The Jackal,
Oh,
the latest one with
yeah.
Eddie Redmayne. Yeah, I enjoyed that. But
Yeah.
yeah, just enjoying what you're doing to start with, and having some metric for progress, which is kind of
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Yeah.
And obviously all the standard advice of try not to have too many overheads. Like my big trick was the fact I had like literally no overheads when I left. Similar to you, kind of like
Yeah.
we didn't
Well,
have
it's changed.
mortgages, didn't have spouse that relied on us, didn't have debt,
Mm.
had a decent amount of cash, could live cheaply.
Mm.
We're quite selective where we live. Like I think you and I were both very blessed that we turned up in the places we did at the times we did. Like
Oh, absolutely.
Bali,
Yeah.
Bali was Bali was an absolute stunner for me at a time when I could have a great lifestyle. I didn't have my income trading was crap, and I could still live a great lifestyle and not dig into like I would have been like literally eating into positions where like every dollar of Paladin I would have sold at a time would have cost me obviously like $12 in the future.
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
is
That's an important
painful.
consideration. Yeah.
Yeah, painful to think of. And so, and you when you went to Buenos Aires, like
Yeah, I
I
had the
think a
same
lot of
thing.
people,
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of people like head to like Greece or somewhere and like get the idea that
Just
shit like there's no way I can
like
I
a
can
Spanish island in summer or something, and then it's just like, where's all my money gone? It's there's always a place, there's always places for geo arbitrage, especially if you come from countries like we do, like Australia, New Zealand, the US. You're always going to find countries with a weaker currency where you can still have a pretty good quality of life, even better quality of life in some places. But yeah, there's some savage takes on people that kind of do this lifestyle and just like go for the geo arbitrage, and then you get like the locals hitting back at you as if you're just like making fun of their country a little bit. That's kind of what happened in Argentina when I first got here, and I started posting the cheap steaks and just being like, "What the hell? Check this out!" And then I kind of understand it, but like I'm just it's just how it is, and um, basically, I see is just a lot of people just give it a few months and then, they can't kind of find what they like, what they want to do. The whole holiday wears off, and they're like, shit, I got to do something now. Um, I'm lucky I had you to kind of bounce ideas back, and you as a bit of a blueprint. But it is quite like a little bit of a lonely place. There's some good networks on Twitter now that are starting to show up, and there's obviously things you can do, like you can I don't know, join gym, go and do BJJ, um, networking events if it's your thing. But I'm just trying to put together a piece to give people advice, because a lot of people actually reach out and are like, oh, how do you? I'm a bit scared to take the step. Like, how do you make it a sustainable decision? And I'm like, well, I talk about your Substack and trading options as well. Kind of found that as something more so to keep my mind busy and see some money coming into the account each month. But would you still recommend that as a path for people to go down, whole options trading, selling?
Yeah, I would. I think it's still one of the most powerful ways to give yourself a means to survive. Like I still have a few people that always send emails and ask, and like I went through a handful at the moment, like between, I think at the moment talked about DHT, like tankers, frontline. Both of them are pumping out like a 10-ish% dividend, and you can write covered calls on them and earn another sort of 2-3% a month. And between that, you can do a great little return, and it just gives you the ability to like work out what else you want to do. It's not usually your everything, but it pays the bills and keeps the lights on.
Yeah.
And that was definitely the case with me. And it's kind of empowering knowing it's there if I ever need it. Like I can go back to it as well. Like if
That's the same for me. I really like that idea that I understand it. I understand that whole dynamic of like just basic options. Like I'm not super smart with it, but I can kind of tell when did it for a couple of years, so I can kind of tell when the right days are to write covered calls and cash secured puts. But yeah, it's good to have it as a backup.
Yeah, and it's also some of the even now with like me exiting rig, like I should have actually put that in my piece probably is when I'm thinking exit in position, if I don't want to exit it straight away, I'll just pull up the option chain and see if I can get a dirty big premium to take me out of it.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's one of the powerfulest parts of it. I remember talking to you, I think this time last year, and you were doing that with Peabody, and I remember you told me you put a whole trade on that like covered your rent for a whole year, and you didn't get exercised out. So
yeah,
you just took the premium and kept the position, which is the ultimate outcome. I was like, man, that's one of the best trades I've ever heard of.
yeah. Well, Peabody, because I'm really leaning into getting out of that now with essentially the strategy as well. It just keeps going down, and I've been selling premium all the way down because I just don't see like I've got nothing against Peabody, but if you're going to express a bullish view on Met, why would you want they've got like execution risk on the deal they've done, and you have to be bullish on Met working out for them to have a good outcome. And if you have a good outcome, you then get give a whole lot back to Queensland government through royalties. So if you've got a bullish view on Met, why not just own Warrior and AMR and Whitehaven? That got an even better deal than Peabody. So I'm getting really aggressive with writing sort of covered calls on Peabody, and I'll probably be out of the position in the coming months, just at some point when it bounces, and I'll be taken completely out. And I should probably do the accounting on how much I've earned over, because I've been in Peabody.
That'd be an interesting article, even if you just did the percentages, just to see what you've actually taken away. Because I've had times where you kill it for like 6 months and then nothing for a few months, and then it's kind of a bit messy. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see what data you have on that, what results.
I've definitely earned more than my original position, that's for sure.
Yeah, mate. That's
to give you an idea, I'm pretty sure like I for whatever reason I always try and like hit like $1. I don't know if that's just a amount I'm anchored to. And my original what was my original cost base was something like 270 somewhere around there. And so and and I probably hit $1 in covered call premium on the entire position, probably at least like 4 or 5 times. So I'd be coming up for having paid off the whole position, and then probably another 50 to probably approaching like double my original cost. And
that's just on Peabody, right? So
just on Peabody,
very interesting to see that, see the results from that, all the stats. But yeah, cool. No, I think that's all I wanted to go through with you, mate. So you got the second part of this oil article you just released today coming out shortly?
Yeah.
Oh, not shortly, but
I always say shortly, and then I just go too far down the rabbit hole, because it's the problem with that is like I just want to give every company want to go over every company, and I also want to talk about other stuff as well. So I'm like always all over the place with I found like once I enjoy trying to like go through, like answer all my own questions I have in my head and my pieces, and so it's become far longer, and I probably need to start making them shorter again. But I just find like I'm enjoying it at the moment, making them far longer and a lot deeper. Probably annoy some people not being as frequent. But I don't know.
Yeah, sounds good. Cool.
Provide value.
Yeah, mate, loved it. It was a great read this morning in beautiful sunny Buenos Aires. It's been bloody beautiful here. I haven't seen a cloud for like 2 months, and the heat hasn't settled in yet. So usually like the heat settles in mid-December and everyone deserts the city. It's like 35, humid. It's unbearable, but it's just been beautiful, like mid to late 20s actually. And now it's just only starting to get hot here. So it's been very pleasant and very quiet holiday period for me here, but yeah, enjoying it. So yeah.
Your brother's been killing it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he played a test match and did really
Yeah.
well. Won
Got a 50 on the, didn't he?
yeah,
On the
and then
first.
hit the
Yeah.
winning runs at the end. So that was to win the whole championship. So yeah, I was pretty proud of him actually. Geez, kind of knew he always had something like that in him, but wasn't sure he'd ever get the chance because he's in his 30s now. And yeah, got the
Yeah.
chance and just got selected for Sri Lanka tour today. So yeah, who knows? Interesting to watch him and see how far he gets with it. Got Aussie cricket.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. All right, mate. Absolute pleasure. Thanks for joining us. And yeah, chat to you in a month.
Sounds good, man. Yeah, good catching up.